Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of Rosarita by Anita Desai. The main themes are memory, identity, grief, isolation, the elusive nature of truth, the complexities of mother-daughter relationships, and the pursuit of freedom and autonomy. The important characters are Bonita, Rosarita, Bonita's mother. Rosarita is also known as Sarita. The stranger, who Bonita calls a trickster, Vicky, a person from Rosarita's past, the grandfather, Artura, and the artist community and the family in Colombia. Bonita is a young Indian student in San Miguel de Allende, which is in Mexico. Bonita is sitting alone in the garden, thinking about her anonymity. Her solitude is interrupted by an eccentric, colorfully dressed older woman who insists she recognizes Bonita as the daughter of her old friend Rosarita. And Rosarita, she says, was a painter from India who once studied art in that very town. But Bonita protests because her mother was Sarita and not Rosarita, and Sarita was never a painter and she has not even visited Mexico. But the stranger, undeterred, starts weaving a tale of friendship, art, and memory, unsettling Bonita's certainties and planting the first seeds of doubt about her own family history. The stranger, who introduces herself as Vicky, is relentless in her conviction. She describes Rosarita's artistic talent, her time under the tutelage of the Maestro Francisco, and her transformation in Mexico. Bonita, defensive and skeptical, tries to dismiss the story, but Vicky's vivid details and emotional intensity begin to erode her resistance. The encounter leaves Bonita both irritated and strangely compelled, unable to shake the feeling that something in Vicky's story might be true. Back in her room, Bonita is haunted by Vicky's words. She recalls a pastel sketch above her childhood bed of a woman and a girl in a park, eerily reminiscent of San Miguel. She remembers boxes of papers, a long period when her mother was absent, and the unspoken gaps in her family's narrative. The possibility that her mother had a secret past, perhaps even as an artist in Mexico, begins to take root, challenging everything Bonita thought she knew. The sketch, once a background detail of Bonita's childhood, now becomes a focal point. Its pastel colors and ambiguous figures, mother and daughter together, yet apart, mirror Bonita's own relationship with her mother. The image blurs the line between memory, absence, and illusion, suggesting the truth of the past may be as much about what is imagined as what is remembered. Bonita's family history is marked by silence and routine. Her mother Sarita is a figure of reticence, her past shrouded in mystery. The family's life is governed by order, tradition, and the suppression of drama. Bonita's attempts to question her mother's origins or the reasons for her long absences are met with evasions or silence. The family's patriarchal structure, embodied by Bonita's grandfather, enforces a culture of not asking and not telling. The unexpected invitation arrives for a cultural event at the Mexican embassy in Delhi, focusing on the connections between Mexican and Indian artists. Bonita attends, witnessing harrowing images of violence from the Mexican Revolution and the Indian partition. The parallels between the two histories, trains filled with refugees, massacres, and the trauma of displacement, trigger a visceral reaction in Bonita, forcing her to confront the possibility that her mother's silence hides a history of violence and loss. The embassy's events, images of blood, trains, and suffering resonate deeply with Bonita. She recognizes in them the unspoken history of her mother's family, perhaps refugees of partition, their story erased by trauma. The art becomes a bridge between personal and collective memory, suggesting that what is unspoken in families is often mirrored in the larger tragedies of history. Bonita's growing obsession with her mother's possible past leads her to seek permission from her grandfather to travel to Mexico. The old man, emblem of family authority, grants his approval with a detached formality. This act, both liberating and anticlimactic, propels Bonita into her own journey of discovery, echoing the migrations and displacements of her ancestors. Back in San Miguel, Bonita seeks out Vicky, determined to test the truth of her stories. Vicky leads her on a meandering quest through the city and its outskirts, pointing out ruins and recounting tales of lost houses, vanished families, and the passage of time. The line between fact and fiction blurs as Bonita is drawn deeper into Vicky's web of memory, performance, and longing. Vicky takes Bonita to the site of a former art school, now a ruin. The desolation of the place mirrors the gaps in Bonita's knowledge of her mother. Vicky's stories become increasingly fantastical, communes of artists, foreign students, violence, and loss. Bonita's skepticism grows, but so does her need to believe to find some trace of her mother in these ruins. Vicky, now openly called the Imbroglina, that is a trickster, oscillates between warmth and manipulation. She proposes a trip to her family's house in Coloma, promising her new revelations. Bonita, torn between suspicion and hope, agrees, sensing that the journey is as much about the search for meaning as for truth. The Imbroglina's stories become a performance, a way of keeping the past alive through invention. In Coloma, Bonita is introduced to the Imbroglina's family, their grand house, and the tensions of inheritance and memory. The house is both a mausoleum and a stage filled with ghosts of the past and the unresolved grievances of the living. Bonita's presence becomes a catalyst for family drama, exposing the ways in which stories are used to claim, defend, or deny belonging. A night of melodrama and accusations ends with the Imbroglina's breakdown, haunted by ghosts both real and imagined. Bonita, exhausted and disillusioned, realizes that the search for her mother's past has become entangled with the Imbroglina's own need for recognition and restitution. The boundaries between their stories dissolve, leaving Bonita with more questions than answers. Bonita travels alone to La Mansala, a small town on the Pacific coast. The ocean, vast and indifferent, offers a sense of clarity and relief. Here, among expatriates, artists, and the rhythms of daily life, Bonita finds a community that is open, accepting, and unconcerned with her past. The absence of her mother's ghost is palpable, and Bonita is left to confront her own desires and limitations. Bonita explores La Manzila, looking for any sign that her mother was ever there. She meets artists, locals, and other wanderers, but finds only the ordinary joys and sorrows of life. The search for mother becomes a search for meaning in absence, for connection in a world where stories are always incomplete. Bonita is drawn into the life of the town, its rituals and routines. She observes weddings, funerals, and the daily dramas of its inhabitants. The living and the dead coexist in a landscape shaped by memory and forgetting. Bonita comes to accept that some stories can never be fully known and that the act of searching is itself a form of belonging. A visit to the local cemetery brings Bonita face to face with the limits of knowledge and the inevitability of loss. The graves, some tended and some forgotten, are threatened by the encroaching sea. Bonita reflects on the fate of her mother, her family, and herself, recognizing that all stories are ultimately washed away by time. Bonita's journey ends not with answers but with acceptance. She has traveled as far as she can, both geographically and emotionally. The search for her mother's past has led her to the edge of the world and to the realization that some connections are unknowable, some truths forever out of reach. In the end, she finds peace not in the discovery but in the willingness to live with uncertainty. And here ends the story. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box, like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.